Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished representatives from the Turkish ministries and national authorities and also from the European Union, dear participants. It's not only a great pleasure to be here with you at this conference, it's an honor and it's a privilege also to be here. And I like so much to come to Turkey from time to time and to work with the ministry and with the EU delegation and with other stakeholders, of course, here. And let me first maybe refer to a statement that was done before from one of the previous speakers when we spoke about the benchmarks in lifelong learning that exists at European level. I would wish, and unfortunately, we don't have a benchmark on lifelong guidance, but it seems that it is necessary also. And it seems it is necessary because of one fact that I will tell you. And this fact is a criticism, but not of Turkey. It's a criticism of the European Union, in a way a self-criticism from us, because a recent Eurobarometer survey has found out that only about 30% of European citizens have access to lifelong guidance services. And this is not very much, as you can imagine. And maybe if looking deeper, they only get very little and superficial access also to lifelong guidance services. So this kind of self-criticism just wants to highlight at the very beginning that when I was asked to speak about lifelong guidance in Europe, that also we have a lot to do in Europe, a lot to do. And I would wish and I hope that on this way for improving the lifelong learning and also lifelong guidance systems, we can go together with Turkey so that we learn from each other, that we share the experiences that we have and also the failures that we had, and at the same time that we also learn from the Turkish experiences in order to improve the situation in Turkey and to improve the situation in the European Union countries. So when I was asked to speak about lifelong guidance in Europe, and maybe the term lifelong guidance, I don't know how it translates in Turkish, does not exist in your country perhaps even, or has not existed a couple of years ago. I think I need to make also reference to that it is a relatively new term in the European Union that was coined by the European Union member states and countries. But still beforehand, not all of the European member states use these terms also that were developed at the European Union level. Some of them maybe have introduced it in their legislation and also use it in the practical terms, but other countries continue to use the terms that they have been used before. For example, in England or in the UK, it's used career information and advice services. In Germany, it is called educational and vocational guidance, and so on. In France, again, another term is used. Yeah? But what is important, I think what is important also for you, in order not to get confused with that term, what is lifelong guidance? In fact, it is career guidance. It is about career guidance in a lifelong perspective. And here, I think is the reason why the organizers have put also lifelong guidance somehow at the forefront of the lifelong learning project launch, because it is an important element that helps to achieve the lifelong learning strategies, actions and implementation. And if there was no lifelong guidance, or at least elements of it, because also in Europe there are few countries that have a lifelong guidance system, all are working on it, but the way to go is long, as I have outlined at the beginning on that statistics, is to have a common goal, and is that it is integrated in lifelong learning. And this is important. So I want to give this key message from the very beginning. It is maybe like a lubricant oil, if you think of mechanics. And if you don't have a lubricant oil, then something will not go well with that machine. And of this metaphor, you may think also in terms of lifelong guidance. Another point. When I was asked to speak about lifelong guidance in Europe, then I also noticed we cannot be just confined to Europe because we are living in a globalized world. We are influenced by global developments, and we ourselves create and influence global developments. So I wanted to start with a bit of a bigger picture. And this bigger picture is an American futurist, I think, who died this year, is exactly pointing to the core of lifelong learning and then also to lifelong guidance. And many of you maybe know this famous phrase of Alvin Toffler, the American futurist, and this was used at the Director General's meeting for vocational education and training of EU member states last year in Riga, where the so-called famous Riga conclusions were done. Somebody quoted this futurist. And I will tell you now a little bit more about this. First, I read it. It's about the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write. But please don't misunderstand this, that basic skills are not important. This is not the message. But the message is that something else is equally, if not more important. The illiterate of the 21st century will be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And also, the Director General from the Ministry of Education, Lifelong Learning, mentioned the importance of learning. The importance of learning. But let's reflect a little bit about learning. Learning does not just mean learn and learn and learn and accumulate. It also means unlearn. Things that were learned wrongly, to overcome, and this is not easy, and then to relearn something, yeah? So that's at the core of lifelong learning, and in fact it is the ability learning to learn, which is a kind of key principle, and we tend to forget. We speak about basic skills and other skills and working skills, but learning to learn is at the core of lifelong learning, and therefore also justifies lifelong guidance. And again, looking a little bit at the broader picture before coming to Europe. A recent study from the Global Institute McKinsey consultancy a few years ago on education to employment spoke about a congested highway. And it's not the Turkish highways now, or Turkish Istanbul traffic here. It's a congested highway from education to employment. And not about Europe only, I think also UK was involved in that study, Turkey was involved in that study, United States, Mexico, India, Brazil. So emerging and big economies also. And here, this large-scale survey found out things that we know also in Europe, more or less. 4 out of 10 employers say that a leading reason for the vacancies is a lack of right skills in the new graduates, whatever graduates they are, from compulsory or then from higher education. Only 50% of the working youth landed in a job related to their field of study. Also this we know, we are quite familiar in Europe with that. 50% of the youth are not sure that their post-secondary education has improved their chances to find a job. What does it mean? It's not only about education, it's also about non-formal education and training, for example, as the Director General from Lifelong Learning outlined before. And last but not least, youth are not well informed when making educational choices. And here we are at the core of career guidance. And if I summarize, there are not only European challenges, there are global challenges for lifelong learning and guidance. There is the academic drift in societies at the expense of labor market and individual. There is the skills match, over-education versus underskilled. There is youth unemployment despite that youth is better educated than ever before. It's the paradoxon of educated unemployed, and I think also Turkey was hit in the last years with that phenomenon, other countries before. And there are untapped human resources. The interests, skills, and talents are not in line often with the current or with the future job needed. This is all about career and lifelong guidance. And the G20 economies have met, and a survey has been done recently on them. What are their major priority policy measures for youth and for youth unemployment? And among the two top priorities were, first of all, more and better cost-effective active labor market measures. But on the second point, it was assist the transition to the world of work. Assist the transition to the world of work. And part of this wider package is again career guidance. Vocational education is also at the same level. Almost 72% of all the G20 economies said this is their top priority measures for youth. And now we come to career guidance or to lifelong guidance. As I said before, lifelong guidance is career guidance, but it is a term that was coined by the European Union 15 years ago in view of the lifelong learning memorandum and in view that lifelong learning needs to be supported by lifelong guidance. Otherwise, it will not work effectively. And this career guidance or lifelong guidance, if you wish, sometimes is pictured by countries and by strategies also like almost a panacea. Almost a panacea to solve different problems. Therefore, I've put it here as a question. But maybe it is only part of the solution. Yes, it can be part of the solution. It is not the only solution, but it's part of the solution to the transitions, different transitions, also transitions to work, as it was highlighted by the European delegation before. It can be part of the solution to employment, and it can be part of the solution to employability. And these are the three very strong points of career guidance. But we need also to be critically, self-critically, not just to promote one thing. Can it be also part of the problem, career guidance? Yes, it can be part of the problem, the career guidance, because there are manifold challenges involved. One of them, for example, is if career guidance is adopted in a wrong paradigm and in a wrong approach. And I've worked in many countries, and I've seen that wrong paradigm and wrong approach. And if the wrong paradigm and wrong approach is being used, then it can be part of the problem. It can be part of the problem and not solving the other ones I mentioned before. Or another thing, if you do not have a critical mass of specialists, professionals, and semi-professionals that work in the field of career guidance, you are chasing a goal, you want to contribute to something, but you will never achieve it. Because the critical mass of practitioners, of professionals in the field is lacking. And the effects and the impact are so minimal that you may not achieve. So there are different challenges involved, and we need to be aware of this. The good news, however, is that international reviews in the last 10 years, and the international reviews were mainly carried out by the European Commission, also by the ETF, by CEDEFOP, by the OECD, by ILO, by the World Bank, and all of these reviews in many countries, about 60 countries in the world, including also Turkey, have concluded two things. And these are important. First, that career guidance is very important for the individual. But since career guidance is a public good and it is also publicly financed by the state, it can also contribute to public policy goals. Otherwise, it may not be justified that governments would fund career guidance services that are free of charge for the users. And what are these three public policy goals that career guidance can contribute? It is education and training to increase the efficiency, the level and the quality of human capital, to address dropout, to address skill shortages or surplus in a country. It is for the labor market goals to have a better match between the demand of the labor market and the demand from the supply. It is for mobility, and it is in general to adapt the workforce. But the third one, it's also about social cohesion and equity. It's about social integration of vulnerable groups. It's about gender equality. It is also about citizenship. So all these reviews have found out that career guidance or lifelong guidance is important for individuals, but it is also contributing to public policy goals if, again, it is well implemented. If it is not well implemented, don't forget what I said before, it can be part of the problem or can become part of the problem. There are some universal truths that we found out in our work from the European Training Foundation, working with more than 30 countries. And we believe that despite cultural differences, religious differences, socioeconomic differences between countries, these are kind of universal truths that apply to all to a different degree. First of all, it's that career choice, or choices now, in the lifelong learning perspective, is one of the life's most important decisions of every individual. We know it, but we need to be more aware of that. Second, the waste of human capital and talent through wrong choices is enormous but avoidable. If it would be calculated, it would result in a terrible figure. It's enormous, the waste of wrong choices. Thirdly, choosing a career that matches three things: the interest of the person, the skills and competences of the person, but also the values of the person. The values, these may include religious values also, significantly increase the chances for success in life and for happiness in life. And this is an important factor. And the happiness of individuals sums up to the happiness of a society and of a nation. Other universal truths are that we need to consider, and that Turkey and EU member states need to consider when designing lifelong guidance systems, is that individuals differ significantly in their capacities for collecting, interpreting the information, for career decision making, and how to behave or perform in transitions. And therefore, some individuals need little help. Some individuals need more help. And some individuals need a lot of assistance. We need to be aware. We know this, but when designing the policy measures, we notice these things tend to forget. And now I come back again to lifelong guidance. In an ideal way, lifelong guidance should accompany the lifelong learning from the cradle to the grave. And lifelong guidance services should be available at all of these stages. But we need to be realistic. And we know there is no country in the world that has this in place. So it is a policy choice. And then again, countries need to look what are our priorities, and some individuals need little, some need more, others need a lot of assistance, and which ones? Because also families and communities differ, and families need to be supported, and the knowledge base of adults, including teachers, we know also is very limited. Ask, for example, yourself, and we did this with parents of students. How many occupations do you know? The good ones arrived at 10. If we ask further, you don't know more than 10, then they had difficulties to arrive at 15 occupations. Yeah? But in the world of work, hundreds, if not thousands, smaller ones, specialized ones exist. Yeah? And they don't know. There is little information there. This links maybe to the effort that the Lifelong Learning Project has for a web-based career information system, which is a very, very important point, that something comprehensively and reliable is there. And then think again on that what I said before. People are different. We speak now for the example of youth. We may speak in the same terms of the adults. The same study from McKinsey said there are different youth segments, and they found 7 in Turkey, Mexico, USA, Brazil, as I mentioned before. The first one is the well-positioned youth. They say their inner belief is, I'm focused and prepared. So they don't need a lot of assistance probably. Yeah? The second one are the disheartened. I know enough to not care. It's a risky one. The third one is the driven. I am motivated because I know education matters. That's already a lot. The fourth group is disengaged. I don't care to know much. Fifth one, struggling. I want to know more. At least a good start. Next one, too cool. I'm not interested in attending post-secondary education. And the last one, too poor. I would like to go to post-secondary or to lifelong learning, but I cannot afford to do it. And there is also a diversity of youth groups that we found in another study from the European Training Foundation in the Arab Mediterranean countries, the educated unemployed, those with a higher socioeconomic background, they are in a more easy position, but there are the and low-skilled jobbers that tends to start early, but then they become under strong social pressure, early school leavers, precarious positions, cannot afford to be unemployed, need to take on almost every job. And there is the inactive youth, neither in education and training nor in the labor market, the so-called needs, most vulnerable to the social exclusion. But what is a career? Now you're asking yourself, what is a career? Career is more than a job, but at the same time it is a job. It is the sum of all of the jobs that one has in his life. And they may vary, of course. So career is not always a steep ladder, a vertical progression that goes up to the career ladder. And we cannot say that just the one who is at the top has made a career, like the Director General has made a career, or the Undersecretary has made a career. Also the Director has made a career. Also the teacher has made a career. You understand? It's not always the top level. There is the aim of a vertical progression, yes. But there is also the aim of a horizontal development and fulfillment in working life. It's a horizontal development and a fulfillment in working life. And that's lifelong learning, through lifelong learning. Yeah. And let me tell an example that maybe outlines a bit Obama, the President of the United States, when he came to office, then he got congratulations letters 8 years ago or something. And then one of the congratulation letters I remember, and therefore this example is so striking, was from a schoolmate, or not university, at high school colleague who was sitting together with him in the same bench in the school. And he wrote to him, I congratulate you, and then he told something about him. And the story that he told about him was so nice. He said, with my full heart, I'm so happy you became President of the United States, yeah? But I also want to let you know, I'm also very happy. I did not continue to higher education like you. I went after that to an apprenticeship. From the apprenticeship, then I went further, horizontally. Later on, then I founded my own company. I have a very small company, just 2 workers. It's a very small company. I do the repair of the watches, of these ones, yeah? And can you tell you, I do this for so many years. I'm so happy. I'm not a rich person, but I'm very, very happy what I did in my life then, yeah? I'm equally happy as you, Mr. President, he said. You understand the message? And what we sometimes in the career guidance, in the lifelong guidance also forget is we speak about employment and about all these career opportunities, the occupations that I told you before, they are definitely more than 10 or 15, not just engineer, medical doctor and teacher, there are other professions as well, yeah? But it's not only about the occupations and employment, it is about self-employment that all of us preach, the ministries, the European Union, we preach more self-employment is important, and entrepreneurship. And we sometimes forget this. So entrepreneurship and self-employment is also a career option, but needs different preparation, of course, and a different type of support. And now I'm coming to the European Union. The time is running out, it's 7 minutes, but maybe you have heard already a lot about the European Union, and usually the presentations start with this. And I didn't want to start with this, but with the more global picture. European Union involvement for career guidance has been for a long time. It started with the Treaty of Rome even, where in the vocational education training policy, first time a reference was made 1957, and then in the 60s, a European Social Charter came up, and career guidance became part of the European Social Charter. But not much has happened. Some pilot projects, some study visits, etc. 1992 was the second phase that was called the consolidation after the foundation phase, because the European single market came to place and created dynamics and demands. And with this European single market, then also lifelong guidance became part of European programs, like the precursors of the Leonardo and the lifelong learning program, Petra program they were called. European career guidance became part of funding opportunities and of national endeavors. But only in 2007, we call it now the elevation phase, when the lifelong learning memorandum was adopted. And this was a key policy. Lifelong learning became a European endeavor, a stronger European endeavor that also goes across the countries, and where a policy came in place in 2004 and 2008 with 2 EU Council resolutions, and the last one is called Guidance Throughout Life, which then coined the term lifelong guidance, which again is the same like career guidance, but in a lifelong learning perspective, and it needs to be integrated in education, training, labor market, and lifelong learning, integrated more. These are the two messages, but it's the same like career guidance, yeah? No problem if you use the other term, yeah? And with these 2 Council resolutions, I think the last major milestones have been set, and the European Lifelong Guidance Policy Network was created, and also Turkey was part of it. And there was a lot of interesting developments, and the developments were sometimes slow, also in the European Union, but they were visible. And the path that it is going is still lifelong guidance for the countries, yeah? But as I said, it's not easy to reach. What is important for you maybe also to understand for the concept of lifelong guidance is that a paradigm shift has occurred. And this paradigm shift in the EU and OECD countries is that previously career guidance was an intervention at a key point in life, usually sometimes only once in the life, namely in the last grade when the students left to the labor market or university left to the labor market. Yeah? Now, lifelong guidance means, or career guidance means, an intervention at many key points in the life. Secondly, previously in the old paradigm, it was more a psychological approach, meaning that the career guidance looked more into the interests and into the inner capabilities, but not so much outside in the labor market and what's going on there, what occupations are there. So the approach is changing, not radically, but is moving from a dominant psychological orientation to a more tasting the world of work, tasting, you know, appetizing. So getting, for example, acquainted. In Germany, for example, students have to test at least 3 or 4 occupations. They have to go to the companies and to see for a week or so, is it mine, is it not, to get impression from the world of work. And not just a psychological testing, doing a test, and then you say, yes, you should go in this stream, you should go in this stream, and nobody validates this, and the information is maybe completely wrong. So it's something more looking to the real world of work. Third one, and this has been criticized as a kind of neoliberal approach. And in a way, it is true, but on the other hand, it is also an approach that helps the individual. Namely, there is a shift from not only relying to an expert, a professional expert, a career guidance counselor, of course, relying to that, but also an approach to take a bit self-responsibility of the individual, meaning to develop own self-career management skills, planning skills for a career. And only education, lifelong learning institutes can develop in trainings, in modules, in curricula, can develop such skills. Doesn't mean that the individual now does everything and the state says, no, no, no, we don't need career counselor. No, don't misunderstand. But it means it is complemented to an expert support. And it moves away from a medical model where you go to a doctor, you get a receipt, you take the medicine. It's not like this. You go to a counselor, you get the test, you get the medicine, and then you take the medicine and you go into this direction. It's going away from this model. Yeah? It was never like this, but there were some elements of that. Yeah? It means self-responsibility. Yeah? The other one is helping, like the teacher as a facilitator in the schools. And there are more and more self-help approaches. And these self-help approaches are, of course, also possible online. 4 key priorities, and then I stop. My time is running out in 2 minutes. The lifelong guidance policy of the European Union has 4 priorities. And I hope you remember at least 2 of these after the event. It's not easy. We are overwhelmed with information, we know. Yeah. First is access by all citizens. But as I said, in Europe, maybe 30% of the citizens' access is far away from that lifelong guidance goal. We have a long way to go. Secondly, career management skills. So what I said before, the ability that in schools, in lifelong learning centers, the participants learn how they themselves can also help and not just rely on the information that is being provided. More than almost 20 countries in the European Union have, for example, introduced career management skills in career education compulsory subjects like Finland, but also others, or they do it as part of another subject. Third one, quality assurance of the provision. And the fourth one is coordination and cooperation. And let me stay with the last one. Please remember at least two. Access, career management skills, quality provision, coordination and cooperation. European Union countries, including Turkey, are working for more than 10 years on this. And still will work 10 years on this, because the priorities remained. And coordination and cooperation is perhaps the most critical. And you know why. In particular in a big country like Turkey. Because we see it in big and in small countries in the European Union, that services overlap. Services do not communicate between each other, between ministries within the same ministries. In Turkey, for example, as you know, İşkur is a main player on that. They have their target groups, but target groups also overlap. İşkur in the last years has enlarged their staff for career guidance from 3,000 to 7,000, I was told. This is an important figure. In the review that we did 5-6 years ago in Turkey here, I remember in schools in Turkey, in compulsory education schools, there was almost a small army, I said army, of 15,000 teachers that got a task to do career guidance in the curriculum as part of wider competencies. But career guidance was a small part, yeah. I don't know what happened with this army of 15,000 people. Are they used? Are they still in place? Are they doing other things? Yes. Then you have new structures, lifelong learning departments and others. I do not know about the staff capacities there, but I just wanted to tell you that we made the experience with other countries that there are a lot of activities and that are not interconnected. And here, maybe in this effort, in this area, European Union member states did the biggest progress, because in all of the member states, I think, in all, maybe one or two not, I don't know exactly, but almost all, have established at least cooperation mechanisms, if not coordination mechanisms. And one of these cooperation mechanisms is the so-called National Forum for Career Guidance, that could have just a dialogue function, but it could have also a consultative function to ministry and the other players, or it could have even a higher function, preparing certain technical work for the ministries. Different possibilities also here, and not to forget the cooperation and the cooperation function. Coming to an end, there is a definition of lifelong guidance, but I leave it to the next speaker, so I saved the time, and just wanted to let you know that there are different transitions. You will see in the slides that you haven't got, but you will get the slides, and that many roles can be played by career guidance, that there are different models. We from the EDF have developed a taxonomy a couple of years ago, that you can have a curriculum model. Within the curriculum model, 7-8 opportunities, options, a center model, an individual model, and the virtual and the web-based model. And the message is combine them, don't do just one. And how to combine, this will influence the effectiveness of the services. And then you have delivery modalities like career information, work tasting, testing, individual guidance, career counseling, and so on. I can't go into that. There are, of course, also barriers for implementation. I jump over and the policy lessons. And last slide, you can prepare or you can try to escape from the lifelong guidance. But you will have some difficulties. You see on the slide. And last but not least, making lifelong guidance work, you need 3 ingredients. It's passion, it's vision, and action. If you have a vision, and maybe you have it, but perhaps not, because I heard the project is now developing a concept of lifelong guidance. So maybe you don't have a vision yet. But if you have it, and an action, but no passion, you will be mediocre. I think it's not a risk here in Turkey. But if you have passion and vision, but no action, you will be just daydreaming. That's a risk for many countries, including Turkey. If you have passion and action, but you have no vision, then you will reach the wrong goal. And that's also not desirable. Thank you so much for your attention. Looking forward to your questions afterwards.